Can we just pray for a moment, please? Father, I ask your guidance and your presence with us this evening in this gathering. You know, and these people now know, this is my third sermon today, and I'm a little bit concerned about getting things mixed up, and yet I think there's a real need here to hear a clear message, and I'm just honored and privileged to be standing in this place at this time in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. So, my name is Kevin. I hang out at the church down the road here, the one that had the sign today that was talking about St. Edwin. Now, not the guy who hit the home run last night, for those of you who are watching it, although it did make Facebook in a couple of places, and that was certainly on my mind. But St. Edwin was a Northumbrian saint, actually, and his Saint's Day is October the 12th. And I'd like to remind people that saints are part of our lives, so I couldn't help, when I saw that home run last night, thinking about the other St. Edwin. This is my third service today. It's been a real privilege to be with a number of different groups of people. My first service this morning was just our regular weekday 10 o'clock thing this morning, at which we had been looking at the movie Risen. It's all about a Roman guard who is charged with making sure that Jesus' body doesn't disappear. And of course it does. So he goes on this long quest, and finally at one point in the movie has this personal encounter with Jesus Christ, which changes his life. And then Jesus disappears, because it's one of those resurrection appearances that is kind of strange in the Gospels. And my second service today, I had 457 people there. That's not quite as miraculous as it sounds. They're all required to be there, and Ridley takes attendance for chapel services, so they were quite fun as well. Today we have, or tonight anyway, we have a gospel that's in a continuation, a series of gospel readings that come over the next few Sundays. And this one picks up last week, where we had Jesus telling us all that, if we even had faith the size of a mustard seed, we could get a mulberry tree to sort of uproot itself and go and stand in the sea. And I'm not quite sure what Martha did with that. You can look up my archives if you want to see what I did with that. And then immediately he is traveling again, and always as Jesus is doing, he's traveling and teaching at the same time. And he comes upon a village where there are 10 lepers. Now, in this case, it seems to be 10 men, although leprosy is not gender specific. But these guys are all ostracized. They are not welcome in society. And they, from a distance, say, "Heal us." And Jesus says to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests," who were in fact the only people who could declare them clean enough to be acceptable in society again. So they do, and one of them comes back to say thank you. One of them seems to be very grateful. Now, the first thing that I want to point out is that doesn't mean the other 9 were ingrates. Right? Because the first thing that you might do is jump to the conclusion, these guys, they don't care. They're willing to accept everything they get and not say thank you. Not necessarily true. It could have been that these people went, and before they went to sleep that night said, "Oh, by the way, God, thanks very much for healing me." They could have said to the priest, "Clearly this is a miracle from God, so I'm grateful." What they didn't do, though, was come back and say thank you to the person responsible for the miracle. So even if they were terribly full of thanksgiving and just elated by the whole thing, they didn't actually say thank you to the person that was responsible. I want to get back at that point in a second. You and I live in a world where companies spend millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to tell us what will make us happy. If you're a baseball fan and you've been watching the American feeds, and I watch those because I have a baseball app, so I get the American ads. There's this crazy ad where there's a llama walking around, sort of flogging Bank of America. And the llama goes on about all kinds of things that would be better in your life if you were banking with Bank of America. Typical kind of stuff. They're kind of cute, actually, if you have a chance to watch them. There are people who will tell you that, if you have the right makeup product, you're going to be better. There's a great video out right now on Facebook for those of you who are on Facebook. I've seen it with several different people where they dab this stuff on someone's face, and all of a sudden one guy's sort of droopy eyelids disappear and the other guy looks really good. It's the same stuff, whatever it is. They just advertise it different ways. But clearly, you are going to be a much better, much happier person with this stuff on your face. I have no idea what it will do to you long term, but they're flogging it. And you know what I mean. You know, you got to have the latest iPhone. People in big places like New York and Los Angeles line up to get the latest iPhone. You got to have a new car. You got to, whatever. People spend a lot of money trying to convince us that we need things to make us happy or better or more beautiful or whatever. And the problem is, and we all know this inside, don't we? The problem is that they don't actually last. I mean, it's fun to have maybe a new cell phone for a while, and I got one last summer, and I spent a day playing with it, trying to figure out how to do things, and now it's just a phone. I could care less whether it does all those things or not. But it was fun for a whole 24 hours. Matthew Kelly. Anybody heard of Matthew Kelly? Matthew Kelly's an Australian, actually Roman Catholic evangelist. If you get to see some of his videos sometime, do that. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. Matthew Kelly tells a story in one of his confirmation class videos, actually, where he talks about things that make us happy. He says, if you want to be happy for an hour, have a nap. I did that this afternoon. I feel really happy right now. It worked, right? I know it's going to wear off because sometime tonight I'm going to be tired enough that I want to go back to sleep again. If you want to be happy for 2 hours, go out for dinner. Take some of your friends, have a nice bottle of wine, nice meal. It's great. You want to be happy for a whole day? Go shopping and buy like 6 new outfits. And then you'll feel really good for a little while. We always tell our kids that. I have 2 grown daughters, and they're in that process of sort of carving out their own lives. So I say to them, if you're going to go for a job interview, buy new shoes, buy a new outfit, here's the money, because you will feel better, and even if you don't perform a lot better, the energy coming from you hopefully will impress the people that you want to have hire you. And it works. There are studies that prove that. But Matthew also says, those things are all fleeting examples of what really makes us happy in life, because they all come to an end. Even if you get the job, there will be moments in that job where you're thinking, I wish I had a different job, or this job's a real pain in the neck. And by the way, that includes people who are the rectors of a parish. Or there are days when I sort of think, gosh, maybe I should go to St. George's. Not very often. On a Wednesday night, there you go, yeah. So there are moments, and those things, they never satisfy completely, do they? For a long time, the church has been saying, in a spiritual sense, that one of the things that does make us happy is gratitude. So have any of you ever been on a retreat? Where you go away to a monastery? Yeah, so some of us have. One of the things they will tell you, especially if you're brand new at that, is that when you want to begin a prayer life, begin by saying thank you for the things you've got. And they don't mean, the new Mercedes in your parking lot, or they don't mean the great new house yet. The little simple things in life. So for example, I'm really grateful that somebody works in the waterworks all night, and somebody works in the gas works all night to make sure there's water and gas in my house, because I had a hot shower this morning. If somebody wasn't doing that, there wouldn't have been those things happening in my house. And it's not so long ago, of course, that we didn't actually have all those things all the time. I am deeply grateful that every Friday morning the city of St. Catharines comes around and takes up my garbage. Because given the hot summer we've had, it would have been interesting to hang around the rectory at St. Thomas's. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. And the funny thing is, not funny, the neat thing is that as psychologists have started to look at this stuff, they have discovered that people who are deliberately grateful, and I'll get to that one in a second, people who are deliberately grateful have lower blood pressure, suffer from less fatal diseases, they sleep better. Isn't that interesting? They sleep better and longer than people who are not deliberately grateful. Students who are deliberately grateful in their lives get better marks. Go figure. They've actually studied this. People between 10 and 19 years of age get better marks. Their teachers feel more positive. So the whole learning process in a school happens in a significantly different way. People who concentrate on being deliberately grateful in their lives are more altruistic. We're more interested in what other people are doing and sort of spreading around the good stuff that we have. And that means that life is better for everyone. Now, by being deliberately grateful, I mean things like sitting down deliberately in your prayer life at whatever point of the day that is and saying, so, like, what are the things I'm grateful for? And not just the flashy things that we all know are really not all that significant. So I'm really grateful for Martha and Dan. They're great people. I'm grateful for colleagues who are just wonderful people. So is Scott, by the way, and Michael. I don't see Michael tonight. I'm really grateful for all the kids in my life. There's 600 kids at Ridley. I get to play with them and then go home and someone else looks after them. It's fantastic. There's probably 50 kids in the daycare at St. Thomas's right now. Same thing. I just get to be sort of grandpa, and I don't have to worry about who's misbehaving. I just get to play with them. I'm really grateful for that opportunity to connect with young people and, forgive me, not have the responsibility of feeding them and doing laundry. So I get the good stuff. I'm grateful for my doctors. Some of you will know that I've had quite bad arthritis over the last few years. They've got me on a new drug now, and I can walk. I don't have to struggle to get out of bed in the morning. I am now working my way off all the nasty painkillers that I've been on for. I'm grateful for that, for all those researchers and all those lab technicians and all those broken petri dishes that it took to create the drug that I'm on. I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the Anglican Church drug medical plan because it covers it, which is even better. So when we list those things, we think about not the things, like your new iPhone or your new car. We think about the things that really matter, our friends. The fact that in this country, we had a Muslim woman drop in and join us for the Eucharist today at 10 o'clock in the morning. She just happened to open the door of the church and we were all there, so she came in and sat down. There's places in the world where that could not happen. Or she might get beat up, or I might get beat up afterwards, who knows? I'm grateful that we live in a place like this. We are entering a weekend like that. We are entering, or about to enter, Thanksgiving weekend. And I think there's a lot of people outside of church land who will be saying, oh, thanks. Or, oh, it's Turkey Day. Or, let's get the family together. And it's not that those things aren't important. They are, absolutely. Those are wonderful things. The turkeys, by the way, don't look anything like a real turkey looks if you went out and found one in the woods. But it's sure fun to get together and eat with a bunch of people, isn't it? But what about being really full of gratitude for all that God has given us? What about being really sincerely full of gratitude, not just on this weekend for the bounty of the earth, but on the following weeks? And as Christians, taking that one step further and saying, okay, so we've got all this bounty in the earth, we've got all this produce, we've got all this stuff. What can we do with it? There was a time in Anglican churches, at least in this country, and I think it still happens in the UK to a certain extent, where the stuff that came in to decorate the church for Thanksgiving would be turned into meals. When I was in Grand Valley, they used to get tons of stuff, baskets of onions and potatoes and stuff like that. Now that was a farm area. All that stuff ended up in the food bank. Some of it got cooked and then sent, but a lot of it just went. Bushels of carrots. If you go out towards the Holland Marsh, that still happens. The churches out there, and it all goes off. How can we share the bounty that we have? Only one of the lepers came back to say thank you to the source of that particular miracle. So my invitation for you is to be one of the 10. Be one of the people who sits down and says, okay, now what are the things in my life that I'm deeply grateful for? And I'll bet if we all did that right now, that there'd be a list a mile long, because there's lots to be grateful for. But then let's thank God for them. And not just, thanks God. Let's thank God by doing something with our gratefulness. something that touches other people, something that shares that bounty in the earth. Because I think, in fact, I know from a spiritual aspect, we're better people for living in that sense of gratitude, an attitude of gratitude, if you want. Psychologically, we're better people too, and we know that. Statistically, those things still exist. If you want to read this stuff, email me. Martha has my email. I can send you the links at all the stuff I was reading about what happens to people who are grateful. And they've studied it. It happens. It's good for us. It's good for the world around us, because God actually wants us all to be happy with who we are and what we've got, and not always to be looking for the next biggest, better thing. So the invitation, I think, in this gospel is not to think about the 9 guys who didn't come back. It's to be like the one guy who came back and live in the gratitude for all the things, including this community, that God has given us in our lives. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.